All right, we're live. It's gonna be like watching paint dry today. Pretty boring week. I see Atlas has gone only up since I closed it. Sticky.
Yep.
Yeah. You're welcome. Even though it doesn't really matter for what I was doing, I don't think it would have affected my farm much.
It wouldn't have affected your farm, but the rewards you were getting paid would have tripled.
If I was holding Atlas, like instead of reinvesting it, and I held on to all those rewards and then Atlas pumped, I think you make pretty good money off that, right?
Yeah.
But since I was reinvesting it, it kind of didn't really matter.
Well, if you were making, let's say, like $20 a day at the lows, you're making $50, $60 a day now.
It doesn't rebalance. I thought if it goes up a lot, it doesn't actually. It doesn't correlate
No,
to your.
I'm talking about the rewards, not because you'll have impermanent loss for sure.
Yeah.
But I always look at it as the day.
Okay, so like
whatever I'm mistaken is different.
the rewards go up, but there's still a little bit of loss on the principal, so it kind of like evens out.
Yeah, there's loss if Ray isn't keeping up with Atlas, and after like 5 to 25% difference in price between the two, you'll have like a 10% permanent loss.
Gotcha. Hey, Aquarius. I haven't been watching much, to be honest, man. The holiday week has been really choppy. Excuse me. Been getting a pretty big sell off. I've been actually closing positions, not opening new ones. We took profit on some meta premium. We took profit on Coupang. Actually, Coupang was a small loss, but overall the position was a win thanks to our premium. But sadly, we gave away a lot of our profit on that. And then in the dollar position I closed, I've been holding my dollar position since March. So we finally closed that. But yeah, I really have not been opening any trades. We've just been sitting back, waiting for dips to buy or holding the things that we already have. I do like this little pump that we're getting on SPY short term. 5-minute back above VWAP, 30-minute back above the 200 EMA. This is the first time we're testing the 200 since we broke it in October. You can almost consider that a test, but wasn't exact. The 30-minute 200 EMAs are normally a very strong indication of what your trend is doing. So we're clearly uptrending here. As long as we can hold on to that 200 EMA, it doesn't look too bad. Yeah, you probably will see some end-of-day action, especially going into the holidays. You typically see a lot of end-of-day action, kind of like what we saw yesterday. Hopefully this time it's actually on the buy side and not the sell side. We have an FOMC meeting tomorrow, so that will be a little hectic as well. I believe it's at 2 o'clock. They're typically around 2 to 3. Yeah, yesterday was pretty crazy. The sell off right into the close. We're coming into the 5-minute 200 EMA on SPY. See if we can get back above that. 5 minutes not as important as the 30. The 5 minutes decent, obviously for short term. We do need to get back above that to start pumping. The 1 minute we've already reclaimed. Right around where VWAP is the 1 minute 200. How's VIX reacting? The VIX is still holding on. If VIX starts selling off, then SPY should be pumping. Financial sector is still climbing today. You can see that retest on XLF a couple days ago. Popped really hard. What was that, Monday? I think that was Friday, actually. Friday, and then Monday popped, and then today, a little bit of confirmation. The financials look pretty good. Real estate trying to climb a little bit. And then consumer staples, kind of the boomer companies. They're not doing too bad. Everybody else is a little red. Energy's up 3%, which is actually a little surprising due to what happened today with the US and other countries. They released some of their reserves of oil into the market. They're trying to flood the market with oil to lower the price, which it can work if OPEC kind of helps them out and cuts the supply a little bit, maybe floods the market as well. But if OPEC doesn't really push back on supply, or sorry, if they don't ramp up supply, it's not going to help. Q's is back above VWAP here. You said you've been using my volume profile strategy since learning about your channel. Very helpful. Yeah, no problem, man. Nice double bottom on Dow Jones. Dow Jones doesn't look too bad, to be honest. Look at this little retest here. IWM coming in for a retest as well. Kind of the lower retest. The upper range has already been broken. This little short-term range that we were in, kind of like right here, that's being retested. You have lost these highs, though. Q's is kind of losing this uptrend here. This is a weak high. I think we talked about this either last week or either Friday or Monday. Somebody asked me about this, and I was telling them how the weak high is when you try to break out of a high, but then you top out too quickly. And that's exactly what's happening here. You have that little high right there. Try to break out, but then it pulls back too early. So that's a little scary on Q's. Pretty much the same thing on SPY, but SPY is more of a swing failure because you didn't really break the high. You broke it and then instantly failed it. So that was actually a failure. I wouldn't be too worried if SPY can hold on to kind of where it is right now. But if we start losing like 464, 462, that's pretty bad. How's Bitcoin doing today? I know Ethereum, Ethereum was doing really well this morning, up 6.5%. You can see Bitcoin's trying to reclaim this range. Bitcoin's actually giving you a very small bull div. These lows right here are creating a bull div. If you look at Ethereum, it's actually way stronger because you did not put in a lower low. You actually put in a higher low. And that's why Ethereum's up 6.5% and Bitcoin's only up 2.5%. Because this is a much stronger move here. Notice how we dipped on Bitcoin, but we did not dip on Ethereum. Bitcoin's still holding that 55.8 level to the tick. So as long as that support holds, this can be the bottom. You have enough support here to create a long-term bottom. But if it breaks this level, there's not enough long-term support until like 52.7 to 52. So I can't really see it bottoming out above 52.7 if you lose this level. There's just not really a whole lot of support in that little range right there. And then Ethereum, you have a double pivot here. You got a pivot at 4,000 and a pivot at 39.42. You break those pivots, probably go down to like 35, 3,600. Not really a whole lot of support from 39 to 35. So I wouldn't expect a long-term bottom in that little range. But if it holds these pivots, this has enough support here to cause the bottom. Get back above the OTS trail, flip the trail green. And as we've seen the last 4 or 5 times, pretty much every single time, the trail flips green. It stays green for a very long time. So watch that trail. Once that flips in the green, basically the downtrend is over. Same thing on Bitcoin. The trail's been red for about 6 days. Wait for that to flip green. And you can see the last few times we flipped green, we went on massive runs. Very nice bounce on Meta. A lot of bull divs coming in too. Bull div on PayPal as well. You have a buy the dip on Facebook, nearly to the penny. Tapped the OTS trail, tapped that 335 level. It can close like this. Looks pretty good. Pretty strong close on SPY daily as well. Not as strong on Qs, but not terrible. But we have to see how it closes. We still have 45 minutes left, so we could get a nasty sell-off, kind of like we did yesterday, and it would butcher the daily. If any of you guys are commodities traders, we were actually looking at corn earlier today. The daily, let me pull up the other one. You have this anchored VWAP from the high in May. We're coming into test pretty soon. Has a beautiful bulldog playing out. See a double bottom pop up, little pullback. We reclaim this pivot. There's a little pivot way back here as well that calls the range high. We also reclaim that one. So if we reclaim this anchored VWAP, corn could go on a massive run to like 625, 666, 676, somewhere around there. Looks pretty damn good. You just need to get back above this anchored VWAP here. Hey, Peter, I'll take a look. If you don't have access after the stream, I'll go ahead and grant you access to all those indicators. I have to grant access to the indicators manually, so sometimes I miss you guys. So that might be the case. I'll take a look at your account after the stream and get it all sorted. Sadly, there's no automated way to grant access to indicators. Do I sound different? I shouldn't sound different. I sound different from like my old streams because I moved houses about what 2-3 months ago, but from today till recently, I haven't changed anything. Very weak volume above VWAP. Notice how the volume was coming in on the break of VWAP, but now we don't have a lot of volume here. We need to see the buyers start stepping in above VWAP. Little 5-minute bulldog on Coinbase. Coinbase is actually retesting the VWAP, the anchored VWAP, from the low here. So if you take the low that caused the massive breakout, that's what we're testing right now. It's also sitting on a daily pivot as well. So this pullback could quickly be bought up on Coinbase. It's going to follow Bitcoin, obviously. So if Bitcoin bounces, it should definitely help it out. And then if we get back above the anchored VWAP from the high, around 337, you should see a nice breakout. Same thing with uranium. If you take an anchored VWAP from August, that's where uranium is bouncing. They also had good news. One of the biggest uranium buyers, the spot uranium buyers in Canada, I think it's called Sprut. They're buying a shit ton of uranium right now. They've been buying it for months, but I think they started ramping up their bids recently. PayPal still continuing to bleed out. We're still waiting for that 200 EMA on the weekly to be tested around 168. Where's the 200 EMA on, or the 200 moving average, I should say. Let's see. Just need a regular moving average. I don't normally use the regular 200, but let's take a look at where it is. It's actually below the EMA, so a lot of support around 170 to 150. This would be the worst month PayPal has ever had if it closes like this. If you go to the OTS, this is actually the first red candle on the OTS PayPal has ever had. It's also the first monthly candle to break the OTS trail. So they are seeing some significant sell pressure. Personally, I think it's a buying opportunity, but I've been buying for quite some time, so I'm a little biased. My average right now is around 240, so we're down about 20%, but I've got plenty of room to add. I'm going to double my shares if we get down to 170, and that will lower my average to close to 200. If my average ends up being around 200, I'm okay with taking the drawdown short term. I very rarely have positions like PayPal where they're bleeding out and I add on to them. I try not to do that, but I don't mind having PayPal in my portfolio for months on end. Teladoc bouncing a little bit here. So is Zoom. Zoom looks very similar to PayPal. It's been selling off for quite some time. The problem I have with Zoom, which we've talked about in Discord a lot, is their value was pumped up due to COVID. And even with good earnings, I think their company is still overvalued. I think COVID was like their prime time to pump as a company and innovate, and they haven't really done anything. So they're pretty overvalued. I think the market agrees, and that's why they're just continuing to nuke. I think, let's see. If it comes down to like 147, 110, then you have a lot of volume in that area. People might start buying it up around those levels. But you can see these other nodes, we've already lost these nodes. So a lot of volume around 250, that was lost. 300, 345, 380, 483. And notice how all of these nodes, even though they're pretty big, they're still well below the value that was found way down here in the like 100 to 160 area. So you are building a nice little node here at around 200, but if you lose that, could go straight down to like 160. It'd be a pretty brutal drop too. What is that? That would be a 70% drop from the high. That's pretty bad. Here's the head of the bulldog. As long as we hold above pretty much VWAP, this should have an end-of-day breakout on SPY. Where is our anchored VWAP from today's session? Right around 46.71. So we're actually bullish on the day right now. If you take into account the anchored VWAP from the pre-market session, we're actually trading above VWAP here, so it's not too bad. What I'm worried about is look at these nasty sell candles on the 30-minute. Massive sell here, same thing here. These sell-offs are brutal. And almost always they're around the open or the close, where you see most of the volume coming in. Yeah, Cal, it's pretty much the same for all holidays. All holidays are usually very low volume, typically lead to sell-offs. Thanksgiving is actually one of the only exceptions. If you look at the historical price chart, the days around Thanksgiving are typically bullish, mainly because they're in November, and November is the best month of the year. But we're not seeing that right now. November has been pretty brutal the last week. On one USD, one USDT. What is this? Harmony. Got a nice little downtrend break. Yeah, kind of a bearish channel. We're breaking out of that. Nice little retest on it too. Notice how it broke the downtrend and retested it. That's actually really clean. Yeah, there's your target. The target would have been the pivot at 34 cents. Break the pivot, probably go for 37 to 40. Yeah, you didn't really need anything fancy on this. That's just very standard price action. Break the downtrend, retest it, and then pop. We had a 4-hour pivot on ES almost get tested. You just barely missed it by a few points. But if we look at NASDAQ, it's perfectly bouncing off this 4-hour pivot. And it hasn't seen a 4-hour pivot in a long time, too. This pivot is a very key level. If it can hold this 1616 level, this very well could be the bottom. Perfect test of that 12-hour pivot back there as well. There's no daily or weekly. It's very hard to put in the high time frame pivots on the indexes because they trade very efficiently. Bounced off a 1-hour pivot as well. These 1-hour pivots have been very good at calling local bottoms. They're not always exact. Sometimes you get a little bit of a chop below them, kind of like what happened here. We put in a pivot, a little bit of chop below it, and now we're bouncing. Kind of failing an old pivot, though. It used to be the 30-minute pivots they're still pretty good. You can see they're calling bottoms very well. But because of the chop, the 30-minute hasn't been as accurate. The 1-hour is doing a really good job. Do I think Bitcoin has any chance of hitting? I'm not sure what you're typing there. Hitting 98K this November. It looks like it wants to drop even more. 98K is way too far away to even predict. That's kind of a pointless number to predict. But I think if it does bounce back above 60K, back above, where are those major levels at? 60.9, 63.3. That's where you're going to start talking about like 72. 72, 74, 82. But I wouldn't predict anything past that. It's pointless. If we fail back below 55.8, probably go back down to 52. The yield curve looks a little toppy. I don't really watch the yield curve too much, but I do watch the yields themselves. And the 10-year and 20-year yield have been pumping. Typically, when these yields pump, it's not good for the growth sector. Typically, when you see like the 10 and 20-year yield pumping, the FANG companies will start to top out. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Except for like Apple. Apple's on fire. But everything else is a little toppy. He said XAU USD turning a long this week. I don't trade forex, but I can take a look. Oh, that's gold. Never mind. I was thinking that was forex. I don't trade gold either. Gold is fucking dog shit. We actually took a loss on gold this year. Well, let's take a look. I actually like when I trade gold, or sorry, when I chart gold, I like looking at the futures, the GC. And I actually talk about gold a lot in our weekly watch list. And it's been breaking a downtrend recently, but it's already losing it. So that downtrend that we're breaking, you can see we kind of faked it out. We tried to break, and then we topped out a little bit. So if it doesn't get back above this downtrend by the end of the week or very early next week, you're probably going to go back down to like the range low here. And then maybe even the 200. But yeah, really all you need right now is this trend line. This is clearly a bull trap, so the bulls are looking pretty bad here. Look at the monthly candle too. We only have a week left in the monthly candle, and that's a really bad monthly. Cal said, what do you think about Lucid stock as a potential competitor to Tesla? They got a long way to go to be a competitor to Tesla. The problem with all these EV companies that are starting up and they're trying to kind of do what Tesla did, Tesla is well established. They're not just well established in the software space, they're well established in the factory space. They have fucking gigafactory after gigafactory after gigafactory. They just signed a new deal with Texas for the Texas gigafactory. So they're just leagues ahead of these other companies. So yes, maybe 5 years from now, they might have a small chance of being a competitor, but as an up-and-coming EV, they don't stand a chance. Nobody stands a chance. Tesla, the only competitors to Tesla are the names like Ford or GM or these other companies that have been around for decades. They're switching to EVs and they already have the factories established. A lot of them actually are getting into the software space as well. Because the biggest thing with EVs, it's not just cars, right? It's software. Like if you're trying to do the smart driving EVs, which pretty much all the EVs are doing nowadays, you have to have very good software. And like I said, Tesla is already well established in that space. So I could see the big name companies becoming competitors, but when I see companies like Lucid or Nikola or these other companies beating the valuations of Ford or GM or these companies that have been around for over 100 years, it's ridiculous. They don't even have factories yet. Their entire business model is based on Photoshop. Like it's complete fucking clown market shenanigans. So they're very hard investments because they are a bubble. If there's any bubble on the market right now, like even if you don't believe that the overall market's in a bubble, if there's any small bubble, it's the EV companies. The only competitor that I can see right now that actually is a competitor is NIO.
Deja, stocks are based on forward valuation. Just because they haven't produced a single vehicle doesn't mean they're not worth $3 trillion.
Yeah, right. But no, NEO is well established in China. They have plants, they have vehicles, they win awards over there all the time.
Don't forget about Ford.
They have a chance. Yeah, Ford as
Ford,
well.
bro,
Ford has
the
a chance as well.
F-150. Yeah, the F-150, bro, that shit's gonna be really nice. I actually saw an electric Mustang today, and it was funny because, like, my girlfriend immediately just laughs at them, but I was like, oh, okay, cool. I think Ford's really gonna pump based on the transition from gasoline to electric, and people are gonna start valuing it closer to what electric companies are valued as.
Yep.
It might not be the same, and it might not be as quick, but the gains are going to be more sure and they're going to be way more steady. So
Yeah, look at it.
we're
Look at it
bullish.
just recently. We were trading it at $12 last year or earlier this year, and it's already at fucking 20. This thing's kicking ass.
Yeah, we were banging Ford out in the sevens and the eights too,
Yeah,
and Atlas.
I know. I
So
had the $12
or
fucking. I had the twelve
Oasis.
dollar the $12 calls, the leaps that I should have held on to.
Yeah, yeah. So I think Ford's probably really going to like 40 plus, you know. I think it'll go a lot higher and a lot farther than people think for a lot longer.
Yeah, so SR, I haven't looked into Rivian much. Does Rivian already have vehicles on the road? Like they have factories producing vehicles? They do commercial vehicles? Yeah, so that's a different story. Like that's not that bad. And they're not a direct competitor to Tesla. They're a competitor in the EV space, but they're focusing on commercial. Tesla hasn't even really started messing with commercial. They tried to with their truck, but it hasn't even been started yet.
Yeah, like SR Dag just said in the chat, Amazon owns 25% of Rivian, so you could pretty much price in the fact that the majority of their delivery vehicles in the future will be Rivian, unless shit really just falls through. So I think like Rivian, the valuation is really high, but I can understand why people are so hyped because of the fact that Amazon owns 25%, you know?
I wouldn't mind investing in Rivian if they have an accumulation cycle. Like I hate investing in IPOs that look like this. If it has a nice IPO accumulation cycle, finds a bottom, I wouldn't mind investing in it. Hey Andre, what do I think about SPY? I think the daily close, if it closes like this in 20 minutes, doesn't look too bad. That little 30-minute retrace down to the pivot, and we're holding the 200 EMA. And you guys know what I always say about the 30-minute 200 EMAs. That is the trend. So if we're above that, we're uptrending. If we're below that, we're downtrending. And we're bouncing right off of it. It's the first test since we broke it in October. So if it holds on to this level, I think this is the bottom. If you lose the 200, then it's getting really bad. But for right now, we're holding. We're holding on Qs and we're holding on SPY. We've lost it pretty heavily on IWM. That's the biggest worry. And then Dow Jones, we also lost it. So two of the indexes are short-term downtrending right now. What cryptos do I think are going to be big winners long term? I think Ethereum is the best bet. If you want a higher return, Solana, like a higher risk, higher return, probably Solana. I've been saying this since 2018, and I still say it to this day. I think the exchange coins are always going to be some of the best performing assets, even during bear markets. So FTT, BNB, coins like that. But yeah, I think the ecosystem coins that have been doing really well recently, like Solana and what's another one? Like Ray. Those are big.
Yeah, Sol's gonna be a quadruple digit token for sure. Next cycle around, Sol will be where Ethereum is now, in my opinion. I follow a lot of like what the developers and stuff do because my girlfriend's a developer, and so many people who like started on Solidity are migrating over to Solana just because it's faster, it's way cheaper fees, and in general, just an easier blockchain to program with and stuff. So I'd say if you guys are looking for like really long term crypto picks, you have to look at developer activity and nothing else. You know, you can't look at like marketing, you can't look at the team. You just have to look at what are people building on, you know. So I'm pretty bullish on that. And then like you guys should look into layer twos also for Ethereum, like layer two solutions like Polygon, because if Ethereum 2.0 doesn't work and they can't mitigate gas fees and make them, you know, cheaper, then existing, you know, people are just going to go from the layer one to the layer two, and that's what most users will use. And then big corporations and stuff will use Ethereum itself as like the base layer. But with fees being as high as they are, the everyday developer can't really use Ethereum for anything right now just because it costs so much to transact. So look into like layer two options as well, because I don't think like sharding or Ethereum 2.0, anything like that's going to fix Ethereum. I think Ethereum will be reserved for corporations, and then, you know, people who are just developing smaller stuff and stuff in beta and shit will use, you know, like layer two.
What he said. But yeah, look at Solana's chart. Not just them fundamentally, but their chart's beautiful. They had basically no bear market. They've gone only up. They have big supporters like FTX. Look at the anchored VWAPs. You have the anchored VWAP from July being tapped in September. Grab the one from September being tapped, 3-4 days ago. So this thing is looking very clean. You just tapped a double pivot and an anchored VWAP. Massive support around 190 to 200. So as long as it stays above like 190 short term, it looks really good. Can I take a look at EFI? Let's see, what is that? Efinity, I think we looked at this the other day, didn't we? Yeah, so you bounced off the 618, reclaimed the 50, reclaimed the 382, reclaimed the pivot. So now that we're back above the pivot, you're looking for like 186 and then around 212. It's actually pumping right now. Looks like it just started pumping an hour ago. Yeah, very standard bull flag breaking out of the consolidation. Thoughts on Facebook? I like it, man. If it closes with this buy the dip signal, which is about to, looks pretty good. Big support at 335 too. It's just in an inverse head and shoulders. That's why it's so choppy. If it breaks this inverse head and shoulders, get back above 345 and actually hold above 345, we're going to 400. I'm holding my shares. I bought my shares at 320, maybe even less than that. I can't remember. It was somewhere around 320. But I'm holding for at least 400. It's hard to buy Facebook here, but I think if you don't mind dollar cost averaging it down to like 300, it doesn't really matter where you buy it, because anywhere from here to 300 is really strong support long term. So if you don't mind the drawdown, I think it's safe to buy here to 300. The weekly is a little sketch. We need to recover this weekly. You have a sell signal on the OTS, a double sell signal. But that's okay. I think that's okay because of the inverse head and shoulders. But you can't go much lower than 335. You go below 335, it's getting a little hairy down to 300, like I said, short term. But long term, if you don't care about going down to 300, then it looks fine. Very hard to make a short-term call on Facebook while it's in an inverse, though. We're testing the 200 EMA on the 15-minute on ES. Thoughts on BlackBerry or Clove? I think the time for those stocks is over. All those meme stocks are pretty dead except for AMC and GameStop. If you want to trade meme stocks, you really only want to be paying attention to GameStop and AMC. All those other meme stocks that were part of that kind of like meme pump earlier in the year, very, very risky trades, except for the two big boys. Do I think Tesla will ever dip below 900? Yeah, it easily could. Tesla is extremely volatile. Saying Tesla will never get below like X level again is not a good bet because it's extremely volatile and it can easily fall. Something bad happens at their factory, they lose contracts for their factories, they have recalls, like there's so much bad news that could affect their stock. Elon getting fined by the SEC again. They're forcing him to step down from his business. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much shit that can happen. Where do I see AMC going? I'm not trading AMC currently, but it's in a massive triangle right now. If it breaks out of this triangle, you have an anchored VWAP at 46. That would be the easy target. And then if it went completely crazy from there, you could probably get 58. The problem with that is this is a short squeeze and it's a media hype. So matching this move without the same hype or the same short squeeze is nearly impossible. So you have to take these targets into account, or you have to take that into account. VWAP, you could probably very easily get. This pivot, that'd be very hard. But right now, you're just ping-ponging between the triangles, so it doesn't really have much of a signal. How's GameStop doing? GameStop is kind of similar, but it looks like it's breaking out of its triangle. Yeah, GameStop's breaking out. This triangle's kind of hard to draw because GameStop is the most volatile thing I've ever seen. Like, that's ridiculous. But let's try to draw this logarithmically. See, how does this look on a log chart? Okay, so it's actually failing on the log chart. It is breaking out on the regular chart. I typically don't use log, but using log on something like GameStop that's moved so exponentially is probably the right thing to do. So this looks like it could have one more down move. It's been respecting the 200 EMA pretty well. You can see the 200 EMA was never tapped, but you're kind of front running it. So if it ever pulled back to the 200 EMA, that could be a nice little area to maybe front run. But even these are kind of dead right now. They're just kind of chopping out. They have little pumps here and there, but nothing like what we were seeing earlier in the year. The growth sector as a whole, and meme stocks are included in growth. They're like the hyper growth companies. Just has not been performing as easily as it was in the beginning of the year. The only one that's been pumping consistently is Apple, really. Microsoft, too. All the other ones, they chopped out for a very long time. Even Tesla had a nice little chop there. Facebook's been chopping out for a long time. One of my favorite charts, growth-wise, and this could lead the entire market next year, is the monthly Amazon. This is one of the most disgustingly bullish charts I've ever seen. If this monthly closes around like 3,700, even like high 3,600, this could lead the entire market up next year. I think Amazon could easily get to 4,000 by the end of the first quarter if you close strong in November. You're about 7% away from your 200 EMA, but you bounced beautifully. This is a perfect bulldog. Now we're breaking out of it. So we filled the gaps. All the local gaps are filled. Now we just need a significant close on the monthly. And it's looking pretty good. Yeah, Tesla's ridiculous. Like you can easily move 50 to 100 points in a day. Thoughts on DraftKings? I have not been watching DraftKings or Penn Gaming, any of the gambling stocks for a long time. We were trading the shit out of these companies. If you guys remember, it was either it was early this year or late last year. We were trading these like crazy, especially during 2020. We were trading these a lot. Either JMA or I were in DraftKings like every week. And we haven't touched it since because it's just been chopping out. I don't like DraftKings until, I mean, you could look for a support somewhere around like 31 to 30, but it looks like shit unless you get back above, what is that? Like at least 40, but you want to see it get back above the 200 EMA around 50. So unless you want a dollar cost average this one while it's bleeding out, it doesn't look that good. Look at this head and shoulders. It's like the most textbook head and shoulders I've ever seen. Kirkland? No, I haven't looked at Kirkland. What's their, which one are you talking about? You're talking about Kirk. Pretty nice bull flag. Been bull flagging ever since COVID. Retested the 50% retracement. That's pretty clean. It is failing this pivot right here. There's a pivot at 26 and a quarter. It looks like it doesn't like this 22 to 26 range. We got a lot of tops around this area. So I'd be careful here. There's a lot of sellers in this area. If it can hold above that pivot, above like 27, 28, get above these highs, it won't look too bad. But long term, it really does not like that level. Wow, look at that fucking pivot. The pivot from 2007 nearly called the bottom perfectly to 2020, 13 years later. That's disgusting. But yeah, you're kind of in an area where a lot of people like to sell, so you want to be careful. Avax, let's take a look. Avax is ripping. This thing hasn't stopped for a while. Definitely extended. You have a tweezer top here, extended off the OTS trail. You do have a pivot coming in. So these pivots, even if they're not signaling tops, they normally signal consolidation points. You can see how we pulled back, consolidated, pulled back and consolidated a little bit there. Same thing here. So normally it's always going to give you at least a few candles of consolidation if it doesn't top out. So if that pivot closes, probably get a little bit of consolidation and then maybe back to the OTS trail. But it definitely looks a little toppy, a little extended. Yeah, we used to watch those stocks. 2020, like CRISPR, all the genome stocks. They didn't really do much though. They had a little pump in 2020 and they kind of pulled back. It's basically the ARC pump, right? They all pumped with Kathy Wood and her ARC companies, and then they died. But CRISPR is actually sitting on the weekly 200 right now. So if you were looking for a long-term ad, this is pretty much the best point it's ever given you to add to a long-term position. The daily is sitting right around a pivot as well. Thing's been bleeding out nonstop though. So I wouldn't add that unless you really believe in the company. I think we've played that, Agars. LTMCF. I think we've played this. We played this back in January. Yeah, we played this pump here. This was one of our plays in January in the Discord. It's actually recovered nicely. It will probably go to the pivot. When you have these very long pivots that have not been tested, they're like magnets. They want to be tested. So it will most likely get to that pivot around 74 cents. Check Fear USDT. Fear. It's not too bad. Put in a nice little higher low here. Kind of accumulated and then accumulated a little higher. A nice little value increase. Massive bull div right there too. Doesn't like that pivot. You can see that pivot coming in right there, topped us out. If it can hold above that pivot, above $2, could go for a nice little run, maybe 250. These would be your fib targets. Perfect 618 retrace. Look at that. Nearly to the penny. You gotta love when Fibonacci's that damn good. But yeah, 247, $3, 324. Doesn't look too bad. Oh, is that right, Agars? You got it from us? Yeah, it looked familiar. I'm not holding any of those penny stocks that we traded back in the day. Most of those were just little scalps. But all right, guys. Appreciate you guys all being here today. Had a lot of new faces in chat. Make sure if you guys are new to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. I do stream 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. I will not be streaming Thursday and Friday. I will see you guys tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, but then that will be the last day I see you for this week. And then I'll see you guys again next week. So if I don't see you tomorrow, if you guys don't stop by for the stream, I will catch you guys next week. The summary markets will come out, same as always, on Sunday. So make sure to check that out. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. If you guys are in the Discord, I'll see you guys in the morning. We still have our Black Friday sale going on. If you guys are interested in joining the Discord or testing out the trading bot or testing out any of the indicators, use code Thanksgiving in all caps. It will give you 50% off anything on our site. Excuse me. If you guys want the all-in-one package, it is the quarterly membership. It will be going for, I think it's like $250. So you're paying about $80 a month, and that will get you Discord, the bot, and all of our indicators. So if you guys are interested, check it out. Thanksgiving, all caps. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're in the Discord, I'll see you in the morning. Peace out.